views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. Way back in 2018, when there was a lot of dialogue in the city of New York and in the borough of the Bronx about the Jerome Avenue rezoning, it ultimately was passed by the city council. And we invited two council members on the program at that time to talk about why they supported the plan and what their hopes were outside of just redoing housing and creating affordable housing. And a lot of it was about establishing a greater and more developed quality of life for the people of the Bronx. And that included what we're going to talk about this evening, and that is the Jerome Neighborhood Health Plan. And this task force has been meeting with a wide range of people in the Bronx, and they have now concluded that part of the work. And we welcome back from the 16th Council District, Council Member Vanessa Gibson. Thank you for coming back to the program.
Thank you, Gary.
And also from the 14th Council District, it is Council Member Fernando Cabrera. Nice to have you back with us, sir. And the whole idea here is let's find out what the task force did. This was about community boards 4 and 5. And so Council Member Gibson, why don't you rewind the clock a little bit, tell us where we were. And it was very controversial. You folks, got the plan passed and what your hopes were and how we went through this neighborhood plan.
Right. So thank you so much, Gary, for having Councilmember Cabrera and I on to really talk about how far we have come with the Jerome Avenue Public Health Task Force, recognizing that way back in 2017, when we worked on this proposal, this idea of a rezoning of the Jerome Avenue Inwood Cromwell area, which encompasses community boards 4 and 5, it was really with the mindset and the goal to create a neighborhood plan. Now, we know rezonings are very controversial because many residents fear you're pushing and pricing them out, that you are accelerating gentrification, and that at the end of the day, a lot of the amenities in rezonings are not really for the residents in those communities. But Fernando and I wanted to do something different. We wanted to create a neighborhood plan that looked at housing, affordable housing for seniors, for children, for families, for homeless families, education. We wanted to look at amenities like open space, parks, greenery, lighting. We wanted to look at a plan that really looked at all of the issues that residents struggle with every day. Not just bringing in a rezoning to raise density to build more housing, but how can we look at the other components of quality of life that residents have talked about? So we were able, through a lot of work with stakeholders, the community boards, to really garner a lot of support around this neighborhood plan. And once it passed the council, we believe that we needed to focus on healthcare and health disparities because of the institutional and the historical inequities that we have in healthcare in the Bronx. So many residents have asthma, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and these are all preventable diseases. So the Jerome Avenue Public Health Task Force was formulated in early March of 2018 to really put together all of our CBOs, healthcare providers, elected officials to talk about an ambitious plan for the future of this area.
So thank you for laying that groundwork, and let's let Councilmember Cabrera follow that up. All the people that the council member mentioned gathered together. I think it was an 18-month-long process. Presumably you're pleased with what the result is. What do the people in the Bronx and in the district need to know about what you've come up with?
Well, first, I want to say it was a pleasure working with Councilmember Gibson. We had a tremendous partnership, and I want to give a special thanks to Fernando Tirado, who helped us with this Jerome Neighborhood Health Plan recommendation. The fact is that there were doubters, but as Councilmember Gibson just mentioned, the fact is that affordable housing is going up, that we are seeing resources coming into the community already. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars that otherwise would not have come to our district. And we're seeing the structural changes that were needed in order to take the Jerome Avenue community to another level. So it's been a really satisfying experience, Gary, to be able to see that dream that we had for Jerome Avenue is already taking place without gentrification. And let me say that again, without gentrification in both of our districts.
Mr. Cabrera, let's talk with you first about it, and then we'll bring in Councilmember Gibson. Let's be specific about health. Now, it would be very easy and very nice to say, hey, we'll open up a new hospital, or, let's get 18 clinics down the blocks here and everybody will get access to healthcare, because there are structural issues. Number one, of course, that's an immense amount of funding that I talked about, but people without insurance, and I mean, and of course, the diseases that Councilmember Gibson mentioned. So what were you able to do that is going to change and improve literally all of the health indicators in that part of the Bronx?
Thank you for that question. As a matter of fact, myself and Councilmember Gibson, we advocated for new public schools, and they were to be innovative public schools that would have the full equipment to have a cooking kitchen, to be able to provide mental health, which is something that we desperately need in our community. We'll have a school-based health clinic and a school garden and a gymnasium, which many of our schools do not have at the moment. And those schools already either in design or in construction already. Parks. We were able to get millions of dollars for our parks. Many of our parks had not been funded. We were able to get many of our parks funded in the millions, and already we have some in design, and some of them already moving forward. So we saw also the Cure Violence program, something that we dearly care about, because especially nowadays when we're seeing a lot of crew members and activity going out, this was just so timely to take place in our community. And but we had things that still need to take place, and we'd love to talk about the farmers market, to see an increase of those in our district, to see more trees growing up. And so we have a lot of the recommendations that we still need to incorporate.
This frankly warms my heart, because you know what I do here every week, and we deal with each of the issues, whether it be healthcare, education, violence, crime, all of these things. We talk about it on a regular basis. And the one thing that doesn't ever seem to get through is the fact that if you want to improve the health, like I made it sound simple, build a hospital, but it's almost like building a prison, thinking that that's how you solve crime. That's not what we're going to do. So Councilmember Gibson, let's talk about the interrelatedness of the things that were just addressed, doing things in a school. And it's forward thinking to think that that will improve the health in our communities.
Absolutely, Gary. And as Fernando has said, there are historical reasons why the Bronx has so many health disparities. This isn't something that started yesterday, and it's something we will continue to deal with. And the fact is you have to look at this from multiple layers. You have to look at our healthcare infrastructure. You have to look at low cost and affordable access to healthcare. You have to look at developing a food policy council, which would be composed of stakeholders that would identify more urban farming, agriculture, open space, farmers markets all year round, right? More nutritious programs in schools, school-based health centers, working with FQHCs, working with all of our neighborhood CBOs, our bodegas, our grocery stores, independent supermarkets. The fact of the matter is healthcare and universal access to healthy food should be a universal right. And unfortunately, in our communities, you don't see healthy food everywhere. Why does healthy food have to be more expensive, right? So we have to work with our partners right now. For every supermarket that we see, there are at least 24 bodegas. So we have to work with the Bodega Association. How can they behave better? How can we provide incentives and loans and grants so they can serve healthier fruits, vegetables, farmers markets? So I think it's a holistic approach. It's a wraparound approach because it looks at things from multiple layers. Now, culturally sensitive food, right? You know, we come from different nationalities, the Latino community, West African, Caribbean, we prepare meals differently, right? So I think we also need to look at caloric intake, food preparation. We need to do more cooking classes and cooking demonstrations, because at the end of the day, we want people to operate better and change their behavior, but we also have to change the environment around us as well.
You know, one of the things I'd say, you know, because of course you folks deal with this every day, among the things that make these kinds of changes so difficult is, again, it's nice to say you're going to bring in this, bring in that, but in order to improve the parks, there's a whole layer, just for example, there's a whole several layers of things that have to be done. Parks funding, you need a buy-in from the city and a buy-in from the parks. So Councilmember Gibson, talk to me about partnerships, and were these, you know, creating a farmer's market? I mean, you know, looking at available land. You talked about dealing with bodegas. You need to buy in from the Bodega Association. They're concerned about the livelihoods, and certainly there's always talk about, you know, commercial businesses being moved out when these things happen. Talk to me about some of the partnerships that were necessary in doing this, and frankly, why it would take 18 months instead of a couple of meetings around a table and, okay, we're done.
Well, I'm glad you said that. A lot of ideas, a lot of different perspectives, but ultimately one fundamental vision: to come together as community partners to create and improve our healthcare system, our neighborhood, and the overall quality of life. So we work with organizations like New Settlement Apartments, WEDCO, the Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition, Montefiore, Morris Heights Health Center. We work with Urban Health Plan, you know, the Institute for Family Health, Bronx Health Reach. Every organization in the Bronx has always traditionally been a part of the Not 62 campaign, because the Bronx continues to be number 62 out of all 62 counties across the state. That's a distinction we've had for years now, and it's unacceptable. So I think when you look at CBOs that serve children, families, seniors, right? When you look at the approach that we brought to this task force, it includes all of our organizations that are working with city agencies like the Department of Health, like the District Public Health Office, the neighborhood office that we've worked with under the leadership of our former commissioner, Dr. Jane Bedell and Fernando and their team. But I think it's because we all serve the same community in a different way. And so, yes, it took a while, but I think the meetings we had, the town hall, and understand this was all done pre-COVID, so we were able to meet in person, but really getting a lot of buy-in from the public, because I think people generally are frustrated. They want to see change. They just don't always know how to go about getting it done.
I think Fernando Cabrera, probably, I'm guessing, because I know him a long time and I know him well enough, he's saying, but what about our kids? And what about the kids that don't have anything to do, and it creates violence? I know you have spent a lot of time in the city council working on these issues. And I'm going to just add, in my numerous discussions on this program, finally, in many places of the Bronx, I know SUV, Stand Up Against Violence, over in the East Bronx and Jacoby Hospital, they view gun violence as a health problem. And once you attack it as a health problem, you have a better chance to solve it. And so I was very gratified, Council Member, when you talked about this was among the things. So talk to me about the kind of buy-in you need to have. And we know the fraught energy now between communities and our police force. What do we need to do, especially with the escalating numbers, to say, wait a minute, this is a health issue. Somebody gets shot, that's health. How are we dealing with this? I know I gave you a lot, but I know you deal with this all the time. So go to it.
Thank you, Gary. And this cure of violence is dear to my heart, because myself and now public advocate Jerome Williams, we were the co-chair of the task force that started the cure of violence in New York City. And alongside with the buy-in, the first buy-in was really from our colleagues who helped us get it passed into the city council. The only initiative during the previous recession that was incorporated. And then through our speaker and this body, we were able to expand it. And now we're talking about $27 million. We were able to not only get it into our districts, myself and Councilmember Gibson, but expanded, like in Kingsbridge Avenue, where we have the BRAG program. It's the most successful cure violence program, bar none, in the nation. People from all over the world come to really study it. So we are literally ahead of the curve, but we need more funding. If I could be so straight up, we need to provide more jobs to young people. And Gary, you're so right on. I'm into prevention. I'm into intervention rather than to pick up the pieces later on. And we have a grand opportunity to do more, especially now. This is the critical moment for us to be able to have the expansion of this program, especially the employment part. I tell you, I never met a crew member who didn't tell me, you know what, Councilman Cabrera, if I had a job and I could take care of myself, I'll be out of this scene because I know my days are numbered, either locked up or I'm going to end up 6 feet under. So we need to do more, and we could do it now. And that's part of this public health task force mission. It was their mission, and they brought it up, and we're going to make sure that we push forward.
You know, I don't know who's a bigger supporter of the concept, me or the two guests I have on my program, but the whole notion of keeping our young people occupied is just so important. And I was really very gratified because people say, oh, gymnasiums. First of all, I'm horrified to hear that there are not gymnasiums by rule in every school to begin with, and that it has to be added, which is, I can't even imagine. You just don't understand life if you don't put those things in. But that's the health thing. It's not only, you know, because, well, yes, of course, you're more young people. We want them to be physically fit, but they're occupied. They learn strategy together. It's all of those things. And that's how we improve the society. I didn't ask you a question there, but I'm just telling you, it just seems, so both of you can weigh in this. Councilmember Cabrera, these kinds of things, community centers. I think of the Davidson Community Center. You know what? Give them $5 million and you'll change the nature of life on Burnside Avenue, right? I mean, it's obvious.
Absolutely. Davidson needs funding. Kiss Bay Boys and Girls Club, they need that level of funding. Actually, this serves 850 young people in that 4-story building. But when I talked to the director, Donnie Quintero, he says, Fernando, I need more funding in order to make, and it will save us funding. Same thing with our schools that we were able to incorporate in PS 33. We were able to create an annex there that is going to have a state-of-the-art gym. It's the largest school that I have in my district, and they didn't have a gym suitable. Think about that.
I'm sorry,
Gary.
you know, talk to the hand. I don't want to. I cannot take it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's insane. It's insane. That's why we got to speak up. That's why we have to speak up. And this is why I love this show.
That's Bronx Talk. I'm sorry. I can't help it. You know, I'll tell you a story, and then we'll let Councilmember Gibson weigh in on the same thing. Many years ago, I was involved in doing a broadcasting of PSAL sports, which is also the same kind of thing, to emphasize it. And at that time, the head of the PSAL, a man named Thomas Hemans, he said to me, I have 26,000 kids who play PSAL sports. If you double my funding, I will have 52,000 kids who play PSAL sports. And I'm like, where do I sign up? You know, Councilmember Gibson, talk to me about new schools and what they're going to mean for the health of our communities.
Another favorite topic of mine and Councilmember Cabrera's, I must say we are the only rezoning to date in the City Council that achieved the establishment of 2 brand new schools, School District 9 and School District 10. So that is just a testament of the work and the strong advocacy of the people and all the stakeholders, because we understand that schools can do a lot to transform a neighborhood, provide a continuity of services for hundreds of students and their families. And overcrowding in our schools is a major issue, particularly in School District 10 in Fernando's district, where he's in the top 10 across the city of New York. So as we build more housing, we build more housing opportunities for families that come in with school-age children, there has to be a need for schools. So that's why we talked initially about this rezoning being a neighborhood plan. You can't build thousands of units of housing and not look at more schools and more parks. They have to go hand in hand. Couple that with the crisis management system and the anti-gun violence work. And in addition to Bragg, gotta shout out Guns Down, Life Up, SOS, and RTG. Amazing work all over the South and the West Bronx. And not only do they provide an opportunity for young people, but they take them off the streets and they save their lives. They give them jobs. They mentor these kids. Because a lot of times, the kids only know the streets. No one shows them any love or support. And I fundamentally, like Fernando, we believe in these programs. And that's why we want them to get more money, because it's not just about responding to a shooting incident. It's about a lifestyle change, getting young people off the street, out of a gang, taking that gun out of their hand and giving them a job, getting them into a trade, a vocation. It's a transformation of their life. And so we are going to keep pushing for these programs. But when you couple that with schools, these are lifetime investments that will make a difference for generations to come.
With all due respect, the Councilmember Cabrera talked about 850 kids. You know how many kids live in these districts? You know how many kids in the area? That's a nice start,
Right.
but
Yeah.
we've got to do a little better. I do want to ask you. I think Councilmember Cabrera brought it up, but we'll start with you, Councilmember Gibson. And this was a very controversial thing from the outset, and concern about displacement of businesses. Councilmember Cabrera, you go second on this. But let's talk about gentrification. People are worried when you bring in these fancy programs, like Bronx people don't deserve them, for example. But when you bring in these programs, they're worried that it's for somebody else. Can we talk about what this has been able to what you've been able to achieve with what is now stated? We're not really gentrifying the neighborhood, we're improving the neighborhood.
Right. And so it's simply because rezonings tend to always be controversial, because unaffordability continues to happen all across the city. We say affordable housing, but we have to make sure it reaches the families the most in need. So I am proud to say, because of this rezoning, yes, we raised the density from R7 to R8 and R8 to R9 along Jerome Avenue and the surrounding areas. But what we've done is created the MIH program, which some people like, some don't, but we've also added a special affordability option that's a deeper affordability that maximizes more opportunities for AMIs less than 60%. Through the HPD's term sheet, which was revamped a year ago, there's now programs like Ella and Sarah that guarantee housing for seniors, set aside for Section 8 residents and applicants, as well as set aside for formerly homeless residents of a shelter. So all of these protections are meant to be the opportunity to create affordability, but also provide for us mixed use. We have to admit and acknowledge that we have two-parent households in our district. You have a teacher and a custodian. They're over $100,000. They're not rich, but they're not at the lowest end of the spectrum. But you also have single-parent households that are making less than $40,000. The average AMI in our district is less than $40,000. So you have to provide that level of support for those at 27, 37, 47, and a mixture. So we've supported that, and I'm very proud to say that the housing right now that you're going to see, Fernando, 1769 Jerome Avenue with SUS and Bronx Pro. I have Mad Equities at Jerome Avenue and River and McClellan. All of that housing, supportive housing, affordable housing, less than 60% AMI. Now that is a big deal. And we, again, want to make sure that it's a continuity, like we start somewhere and we continue on that same path of affordability.
Councilmember Cabrera, and then we're going to do something very special. People don't know what we're going to do yet, but it's going to be kind of like a little live thing. So go ahead, Councilman Cabrera, and then we're going to do it.
I'm ready for the surprise, but so stay tuned. Stay tuned. Don't change the channel. This is where it's happening. Let me just say that, you know, the NYU Deferment Center, reputable center, they did a study in our areas, and they found that we're one of the few districts that had not experienced gentrification. And what was just mentioned by my colleague, this was a very thought out, intentional plan that actually protects that intention of keeping it affordable. What happens a lot of time with the
Take
rezoning.
another 30 seconds because I want to make sure we have enough time.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
very good. So, our intention was to keep it affordable, and it is happening right now. I haven't seen a market rate building or luxury go up yet, and I don't expect it to. I expect it to be affordable and to keep our people in the neighborhood because they deserve it. But I'm
Okay.
ready for the surprise, Gary. I'm ready.
Well,
I'm ready.
you guys are ready. So basically, in order to enact this plan, and we have to thank the New York City Department of Health and the local action center, which has been right in the center of this entire dialogue. Each of the council members have the sign off that they will actually approve the plan, and they're going to do that live on our show right now. So they have their markers. Let's do the signing. We'll show the people the proof that the Jerome Neighborhood Health Plan has been approved. So let's go do it.
Okay.
Each one of them will sign it. And I will just say that, one of the questions I was going to ask, is this a model for the city? To me, the collaboration is a model for the city of New York. I know Councilmember Cabrera is all ready. There you go.
I'm ready.
All right.
Yeah. Come on. Come on.
But really, I know both of you agree. This is a real model for the city of New York as we go forward. We want to improve existing neighborhoods for the benefit of the people who currently live in them. And so we'll give each of you, 30 seconds to just review that. Councilmember Gibson, why don't you be first on that?
So I think we've done tremendous work around the Jerome Avenue rezoning and the Public Health Task Force. Councilmember Cabrera and I, along with Community Boards 4 and 5 and our stakeholders, we set out with a real intention, a deliberate effort to achieve the best we could and find a balance, establishing a vision, a purpose, and all of the different elements that we believe should come with the neighborhood plan. It's not perfect. There's room for improvement. And what I would say to future elected officials that are working on rezoning, I would love to look at community land trust, purchasing private public land for the reason to build economic wealth and power in the Black and Brown community. I would love to see more investments in public housing for residents that live in NYCHA. I would love to see more policies that really protect and prevent displacement. I mean, obviously, we can always.
Let's make sure that he has enough time here. Council member, you do your thing, and I'm going to make one more point, and then I'm going to plant that idea in your head. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for having us again. Look, it was a pleasure doing this work with my colleague, Councilmember Gibson. I want to thank the task force. They really, they work day in, day out on a monthly basis, and a community board, and the people in our community, they came out. They had their hands in the plow. Now it's all about execution, to making sure that what we wrote in pencil, and actually in pen, and signed today will come to pass and actually build upon that. This is not the end. This is the launching pad.
I'm going to add the one thing I didn't hear, which I think also is directly related. Listen, we could talk about mental health and all these other things, music and culture. I want to see more of that in the Bronx. You do
Yes.
that, our kids will be happier, the families will be healthier. And to me, that drives our beautiful borough of the Bronx. Councilmember Gibson, thank you for your passion and for your work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cabrera, likewise. And also thanks to the Department of Health and the local officials who really helped drive the bus on this. Folks, we'll see you next week. BronxTalk, a lot of energy today, but that's our home borough. That's the BX. Have a good night.